The massive alien ship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning. It simply materialized above New York City, its dark metal hull blocking out the sun like an artificial eclipse. The ship was huge, nearly 2 miles long, and shaped like a sword pointed at Earth's heart. Earth's military forces went into high alert. Fighter jets scrambled from bases worldwide, and missile systems locked onto the unknown vessel. But before anyone could act, every screen on Earth flickered to life with the same message. The alien that appeared on the screens looked almost human, except for his golden skin and entirely black eyes. He wore what looked like a military uniform covered in strange symbols. "Primitive species of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Imperial Commander Marcus of the Galactic Empire's 7th Fleet. Your world has been chosen for integration into our empire. Resist, and you will be destroyed." In the Pentagon's war room, General Robert Stone watched the broadcast with growing anger. "Can we shoot them down?" he asked his staff. A young lieutenant shook his head. "Sir, our radar isn't even detecting them properly. It's like their ship is there and not there at the same time." The alien commander continued his speech. "We have studied your civilization. You still burn fossil fuels. You have not mastered faster-than-light travel. You wage wars over primitive resources. You are clearly in need of our guidance." President Williams tried to establish peaceful communication. Earth's most powerful radio transmitters sent messages of peace and friendship to the alien vessel. The response was immediate and harsh. "Your attempts at communication are noted," Commander Marcus replied, his black eyes showing no emotion. "But peace is not an option. Only complete surrender will be accepted. You have 48 hours to lay down all weapons and submit to Imperial rule." The next day, the alien ship demonstrated its power. With a single energy beam, it vaporized an uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean. The blast was so powerful that tsunamis threatened coastal cities thousands of miles away. "That was our smallest weapon," Marcus announced to the world. "Imagine what our main cannons could do to your cities." In military bases across the globe, humans tested their weapons against the alien ship. Fighter jets fired missiles that disappeared into strange force fields. Nuclear submarines launched their most powerful weapons, only to watch them vanish in flashes of light before reaching their target. The alien ship's defenses seemed perfect, too perfect. In his private quarters aboard the subjugator, Commander Marcus watched Earth's pathetic attempts to breach their shields. He smiled, showing teeth that gleamed like polished silver. "Primitives," he said to his second-in-command. "They still think explosives and projectiles can harm us. Our energy shields are generations beyond their understanding. Should we just destroy them now?" his second-in-command asked. "Why wait 48 hours?" Marcus laughed. "Because watching them scramble amuses me. Their civilization is so backward, they're still using mechanical engines and chemical explosives. Did you know they haven't even mastered gravity control? They use wheels for transportation." On Earth, humanity's leaders gathered in emergency meetings. The United Nations held its first true global summit with every nation represented. They all faced the same choice: surrender or die. But in a small office in Montana, an old mining engineer named Tom watched the events unfold on his ancient television set. He noticed something odd about the alien ship's defenses. Every time Earth launched an attack, the alien shields lit up with strange colors. But when a flock of birds flew near the ship, they passed right through. Tom's mind, shaped by 50 years of mining experience, began to work on an idea. A crazy idea. An impossible idea. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "General Jack. This is Tom Anderson. Remember those special demolition techniques we used in the Mountain Wars? I think I know how we might be able to use them against these aliens." "Tom, this isn't the time for—" "Just listen," Tom interrupted. "The aliens are so advanced, they've forgotten about something very, very basic. something so old and simple that their fancy sensors don't even detect it. And that's how Earth's strangest defense plan began to take shape. Tom Anderson's old truck bounced along the mountain road to the military base. At 70 years old, with gray hair and wrinkled hands that had seen decades of hard work, he looked nothing like humanity's last hope. But his mind was sharp as ever, filled with knowledge from 50 years of mining engineering. The guard at the base entrance checked his ID twice. "You're the mining expert they called in?" he asked, looking doubtful. Tom just nodded. He was used to people underestimating him. Inside the base's main meeting room, generals from around the world appeared on large screens. They had gathered to hear all possible plans against the alien threat. So far, none looked promising. "Our best missiles do nothing," one general said. "Even our most powerful lasers can't touch their ship," another added. Then General Jack stood up. He was younger than the others, only 45, with a reputation for thinking differently. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet Tom Anderson. He has an idea that might sound crazy, but I think we should listen." Tom walked to the front of the room. His work boots left dusty footprints on the clean floor. He carried an old leather bag that looked like it belonged in a museum. "The aliens have amazing shields," Tom began, his voice rough from years of working in dusty mines. "They stop every modern weapon we have. But I noticed something yesterday. Their shields only stop things their sensors see as threats." He pulled out some old papers from his bag. They were yellowed with age, showing diagrams from the 1800s. "These are plans for old mining techniques. Really old. The kind we used before electricity was common." The generals looked confused. One of them laughed. "You want to fight a spaceship with mining tools?" Tom smiled. "Not exactly. I want to use something so simple, so basic, that their fancy sensors won't even notice it. Something that was old when my grandfather was young." He spread out more papers on the table. "This is thermite. It's just rust and aluminum powder. Mix them together, add heat, and you get one of the hottest chemical reactions known to man. No electricity needed. No radiation. No complex explosives. Just simple chemistry." General Jack stepped forward. "And you think their shields won't stop this?" "Their shields are programmed to stop energy weapons, explosives, and radiation," Tom explained. "But this is just chemistry, like a campfire or rust forming on a nail. Would their shields stop a match from lighting?" The room went quiet as people began to understand. "But how do we use it against their ship?" someone asked. Tom pulled out his last diagram. "We make the biggest thermite charge ever built. Add some simple shake charges, old mining explosives. Put them together just right, and we can start a chain reaction that their shields will never see coming." One of the older generals stood up. "This is ridiculous. We can't fight an alien empire with century-old mining tricks." But General Jack was already thinking ahead. "How much thermite would you need?" "Tons," Tom answered. "But that's the beauty of it. The ingredients are everywhere. Every construction site, every old factory, every junkyard. We can gather what we need without them noticing. No special equipment needed. Just basic tools and knowledge that's been around since the 1800s. The room erupted in argument. Half the generals thought it was insane. The other half saw the weird logic in it. General Jack raised his hand for silence. "The aliens think we're primitives. They expect us to use our most advanced weapons. But what if that's exactly why we're losing? What if we need to think simpler?" Tom nodded. "Sometimes the old ways work best. Every miner knows that. Sometimes, when your fancy drill breaks down, you need to grab a pickaxe and get to work." As the arguments continued, Tom walked to the window and looked up at the alien ship hovering in the sky. It was beautiful, all sleek metal and advanced technology. But he'd seen beautiful things broken by simple tools before. In the mines, fancy machines would often fail where basic tools kept working. 36 hours left, General Jack said, checking his watch. If we're going to try this, we need to start now. Tom picked up his old leather bag. Then let's get to work. We've got a lot of rust to collect. The military base's workshop looked like something from the past. Old-style blacksmith tools lay on wooden tables. Bags of rust and aluminum powder were stacked against walls. The room smelled like a mix of metal and dust. Tom stood at a large table, surrounded by military leaders and scientists. His hands were stained red from working with iron oxide. On the table sat a small metal container. "Watch this," he said, lighting a simple magnesium strip. When the burning strip touched the mixture in the container, bright white flames burst up toward the ceiling. The heat was so intense that everyone stepped back. "That's thermite," Tom explained, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Burns at over 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt through solid steel like it's butter." One of the scientists raised his hand. "But how does this help us against a spaceship?" Tom pulled out a large drawing he'd made on brown paper. "The alien ship has to have some kind of fuel or power source, something that keeps their fancy engines running. Whatever it is, it's probably dangerous if it breaks." General Jack nodded. "According to our scans, they seem to use some kind of antimatter reactor." "Perfect," Tom said, his eyes lighting up. "Antimatter is dangerous stuff. Very unstable. Now look at this drawing." His rough sketch showed layers of different materials stacked together. "We start with thermite at the bottom. Above that, we put layers of old-style blasting powder, the kind miners used in the 1800s. Then more thermite. Then some simple magnesium charges." He pointed to different parts of the drawing. "When it all goes off, the thermite melts through whatever's below it. The blasting powder creates pressure. The magnesium makes it burn even hotter. Layer after layer, each one making the next one stronger." "Like a chain reaction?" someone asked. "Exactly," Tom said. "But here's the clever part. None of it is modern. No electronics. No fancy timing devices. Just basic chemistry and physics. The kind of science that was old when my grandfather was young." General Jack studied the drawing. "And you think their shields won't stop this?" Tom picked up a piece of rusty metal. "Does their shield stop rust from forming? Does it stop wood from burning? Does it stop salt from dissolving in water? No, because these are basic chemical reactions, the kind their sensors probably don't even look for." He walked over to a large map of the alien ship. "We need to get this mixture inside their ship, close to their antimatter storage. When the thermite burns through their containment systems, the antimatter would be exposed," one scientist said, his eyes wide. "The reaction would be massive," Tom finished. "Their own power source would destroy them." The room was quiet as everyone thought about this. It seemed too simple, too basic, but maybe that's why it might work. "There's one more thing," Tom added. "We need to deliver all this the old way too. No electric motors. No modern engines." He pointed to another drawing. "We use steam power, like an old locomotive. Their sensors will see it as harmless, just hot water and moving metal." One of the generals laughed. "You want to attack the most advanced spaceship ever built using technology from the 1800s. "Yes," Tom said simply. "Because sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Sometimes the simplest solution is the one nobody expects." General Jack looked at his watch. "We have 24 hours left. Can we get everything ready in time?" Tom nodded. "The materials are simple. Rust, aluminum powder, magnesium, some old blasting powder. Every mining town has this stuff. Every old factory. We just need to gather it." "And if it doesn't work?" someone asked. Tom shrugged. "Then we'll die knowing we tried something different. Something they didn't expect. But I spent 50 years working with these materials. I've seen thermite burn through things that high explosives couldn't touch. Sometimes the oldest tricks work best." General Jack stood up. "All right, let's do it. Send out the orders. Get every bit of rust, every piece of aluminum, Every old steam engine you can find. And keep it quiet. We don't want the aliens to know what we're planning." As people rushed out to start working, Tom stayed at his table, mixing more thermite with his weathered hands. He smiled, remembering something his old mining teacher had told him. The simplest tools are often the most reliable. Above the base, the alien ship floated silently, its crew unaware that humanity's oldest technology was about to become their newest nightmare. The old shipyard was alive with activity in the dark of night. No electric lights were used. Only oil lamps and torches lit the work. The sound of hammers and handsaws filled the air. Steam hissed from ancient engines that hadn't run in decades. An old cargo ship, the Steel Lady, sat in the dry dock. Built in the 1950s, it had no computers, no modern engines, just simple steam power and mechanical controls. Exactly what they needed. Tom walked through the ship, checking each station. Workers mixed thermite in huge iron pots, their hands covered in red dust. Others loaded old steam boilers with coal. Everything was being done the old way. No electronics, no modern tools. "How's the loading going?" General Jack asked, joining Tom on the deck. "Good," Tom replied, pointing to large metal containers being carefully carried aboard. "Each one holds enough thermite to melt through a foot of solid steel. We've got 50 of them." Above them, the alien warship, the Subjugator, still hung in the sky like a sword. Every few hours, Commander Marcus would broadcast more threats, demanding Earth's surrender. In the ship's hold, Tom checked the main weapon, a massive thermite charge built like a layer cake. Rust and aluminum powder, blasting powder, magnesium strips, all stacked in careful layers. It looked primitive, almost like something from an old mining operation. "Will it be enough?" General Jack asked quietly. Tom nodded. "If we can get it close to their antimatter storage, yes. The heat will start a chain reaction. Their own power source will do most of the work for us." Suddenly, alerts blared from the city. The alien ship was scanning again. Everyone froze. "Keep working," Tom called out. "They can't detect what they're not looking for." He was right. The alien scan passed over them, seeing nothing but an old cargo ship being repaired with primitive tools. Their advanced sensors, programmed to detect energy weapons and modern explosives, completely missed the deadly cargo being loaded. In his private workshop on the ship, Tom worked on the trigger mechanism. No electronics, no modern detonators, just a simple chemical fuse, like the kind used in old mining operations. He carefully coated copper wires with thermite paste. "This is how we used to set off charges in the deep mines," he explained to a young worker. "When electricity wasn't reliable, we went back to basics. Simple chemistry never fails." Outside, more supplies arrived by horse and wagon, their way of avoiding modern vehicles that might be detected. People from mining towns brought bags of rust. Old factories donated aluminum powder, everything they needed, gathered without using any modern technology. 16 hours remained until the aliens' deadline. In the ship's bridge, powered by steam and old mechanical gauges, General Jack studied their plan one last time. "The hard part will be getting close enough," he said. Tom pointed to the steam engines. "These old engines are so simple, their sensors might not even recognize them as engines. To them, it'll look like we're barely moving, like cavemen trying to reach their ship." A messenger ran up to them. "Sir, the aliens are broadcasting again." On a battery-powered radio, they heard Commander Marcus's voice. "Your pathetic attempts at resistance are amusing. We detect no energy weapons, no military buildup. Have you finally accepted your primitive status?" Tom and Jack shared a knowing look. The aliens' arrogance was working in their favor. As dawn approached, the Steel Lady was ready. Her holds were filled with the biggest thermite charge ever built. Her steam engines were fired up, black smoke rising from her stacks. Everything was mechanical, chemical, basic. 12 hours left, General Jack announced. "Time for final checks." Tom walked the ship one last time. checking every container, every fuse. His hands were stained with rust and coal dust. They weren't just fighting aliens now. They were fighting with the knowledge of generations of miners, engineers, and craftsmen who had come before. Above them, the massive alien warship gleamed in the morning sun, its crew confident in their advanced technology, unaware that humanity's oldest weapons were about to turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. "Let them think we're primitives," Tom said quietly. "Sometimes the oldest tools are the best tools." The Steel Lady crept across the harbor as the deadline approached. Black smoke puffed from her stacks, her old steam engines chugging slowly. A white flag hung from her highest mast, fluttering in the morning breeze. On the bridge, Tom watched the pressure gauges with careful eyes. Everything had to look old, weak, harmless. The ship's radio, their only modern device, crackled to life. "Primitive vessel." Commander Marcus's voice boomed. "Why do you approach?" General Jack picked up the radio microphone. "Mighty Commander," he said, making his voice sound weak and scared. "We bring Earth's surrender. Our leaders have chosen me to deliver our submission to your great empire." In the alien ship high above, Commander Marcus laughed. His golden face appeared on the radio's small screen. "Finally, you accept your proper place. Approach Docking Bay 3. Any sign of treachery will result in your immediate destruction." The Steel Lady moved slowly toward the massive alien warship. Up close, the subjugator was even more impressive. It was like a mountain of metal and advanced technology floating in the sky. "Look at their docking bay," Tom whispered. "No energy shields inside. They're so confident they don't think they need them." The alien ship's docking bay opened like a giant mouth. The Steel Lady, looking small and ancient in comparison, steamed slowly inside. Magnetic clamps grabbed the old ship, pulling her into place. "Remember," Tom told the crew, "act primitive. Act scared. Let them think we're just simple cavemen." Armed alien guards marched onto the Steel Lady. They wore advanced armor that glowed with energy shields. Their weapons looked like something from a science fiction movie. "You will present your surrender in the main hall," one guard said. "You may bring your primitive offerings." Tom and General Jack nodded meekly. They directed the crew to start unloading the peace offerings, the metal containers filled with thermite charges. The aliens laughed at the sight of humans struggling with hand trucks and pulleys to move their cargo. One guard scanned the containers with an advanced device. "Primitive metals and chemicals," he reported. "No energy signatures, no explosives, just simple elements." Commander Marcus himself came to watch the unloading. His black eyes gleamed with amusement as he saw humans using simple mechanical tools. "Look at them," he said to his officers, "using wheels and levers like children. Hard to believe they ever made it off their own planet." Tom kept his eyes down, playing the part of a simple worker, but inside, he was counting containers and watching locations. They needed to get their main charge close to the antimatter storage. "Where should we put these gifts, Mighty Commander?" General Jack asked, bowing low. Marcus waved his hand. "Put them in the storage bay next to the power core. Let them see how primitive their offerings look next to our advanced technology." Tom had to stop himself from smiling. It was exactly where they needed to be. The crew worked slowly, carefully moving their cargo deep into the alien ship. Tom noted that there were no energy shields inside the vessel. Why would there be? The aliens trusted their outer defenses completely. As they placed the last container, Tom carefully began connecting the simple chemical fuses. To the aliens, it looked like he was just tying ropes around the cargo to secure it. "Your surrender is accepted," Commander Marcus announced. "Earth is now part of the Galactic Empire. Return to your planet and prepare for our rule." "Yes, Mighty Commander," General Jack said. "But first, might we show you a traditional Earth farewell ceremony? It's very simple, just the burning of sacred powder, like primitive humans used to do." Marcus laughed again. "Very well. Show us your quaint customs." Tom reached into his pocket, feeling the matchbox there. Sometimes the oldest tricks really were the best tricks. The aliens never noticed that their new primitive subjects were all slowly backing away from the cargo bay, moving toward their ship. They were too busy laughing at the simple humans and their basic tools. They wouldn't be laughing much longer. Tom's hands were steady as he struck the match. 50 years of mining experience had taught him to stay calm in dangerous moments. The small flame looked tiny in the massive alien cargo bay. "What primitive fire ritual is this?" Commander Marcus asked, his voice dripping with amusement. "An old Earth custom," Tom said quietly. "We burn a special powder to show respect." His weathered hands held the match near the first chemical fuse. The alien guards weren't even watching closely. Their advanced sensors showed no threat, just simple chemicals and basic metals. Nothing their mighty warship needed to fear. They were wrong. The match touched the fuse. A small spark, like a tiny star, began to travel along the thermite-coated wire. Tom started backing away toward the steel lady. "How quaint," Marcus laughed. "They still use fire like." His words stopped suddenly. One of his officers was pointing at the cargo containers. A bright white-hot light was beginning to shine through the seams. "What is that?" Marcus demanded. Tom's voice changed, losing its fearful tone. "That, Commander, is chemistry. Simple, basic chemistry. The kind your sensors don't even bother to detect." The first container erupted in a blinding flash. Thermite, burning at over 4,000 degrees, melted through the metal floor like it was ice. The heat triggered the next layer of charges. "Impossible," Marcus screamed. "Our sensors detected no weapons." "You weren't looking for weapons," General Jack said, now safely at the Steel Lady's entrance. "You were looking for advanced technology. We brought something much older, something much simpler." The chain reaction began. Container after container ignited, each one triggering the next. The heat was incredible. Alien metal, designed to resist energy weapons and plasma shots, had no defense against simple chemical fire. "Seal the compartment," Marcus ordered. "Activate emergency shields." But the thermite was already burning through power conduits and control systems. Ancient chemistry met advanced technology, and chemistry was winning. The aliens' energy shields flickered and died as their power systems melted. Tom watched his creation work. Layers of thermite, blasting powder, and magnesium burned in the sequence he had planned. Each reaction fed the next, growing hotter and more intense. The antimatter containment. An alien officer screamed. "The heat is reaching the containment field." Now Marcus understood. Real fear showed in his black eyes. "Evacuate. Everyone Eva." The main thermite charge, the one Tom had built like a layer cake of destruction, reached the antimatter storage. Simple heat met the most advanced power source in the galaxy. The reaction was beyond anything they had expected. First, there was silence, a moment of quiet so deep it felt like the universe was holding its breath. Then light, pure, white light brighter than the sun. The Steel Lady's engines were already at full steam, pushing the old ship back out of the docking bay. Her crew had practiced this retreat for hours, using only mechanical power and human muscle. "Brace for impact," General Jack shouted. The first explosion ripped through the subjugator's hull. Then another and another. The chain reaction was traveling through the massive ship like fire through dry grass. From the Steel Lady's deck, they watched the alien warship begin to break apart. Sections of advanced metal, designed to resist the strongest energy weapons, were being torn open by the power of their own antimatter drives. "Their own power source," Tom said quietly. "All we had to do was break the container. Simple thermite did what all our advanced weapons couldn't." The subjugator's death was spectacular. The ship that had threatened Earth with destruction was being destroyed by the simplest of human technologies. The mighty warship broke into pieces, each piece vanishing in flashes of impossible light as antimatter met matter. Commander Marcus's final transmission was cut short. His golden face showed disbelief until the very end, unable to accept that his mighty warship had been destroyed by primitive human chemistry. The Steel Lady steamed away from the destruction, her ancient engines pushing steadily. Behind her, the pride of the Galactic Empire vanished in a final flash of light that turned night into day. Sometimes Tom thought, watching the light fade, the oldest solutions are the best solutions. The sun rose over a different Earth the next morning. Pieces of the subjugator still fell from the sky, burning up in the atmosphere like shooting stars. The Steel Lady sat in her dock, her old steam engines cooling, while crowds gathered to see the ship that had saved humanity. Tom stood at the harbor's edge, his hands still stained with rust and thermite. Next to him, General Jack watched the remaining alien ships fleeing Earth's orbit. Their mighty engines glowed as they raced away, broadcasting warning signals to the rest of their empire. "They're telling everyone to stay away from Earth," a radio operator reported, translating the alien signals. "They're calling us dangerously unpredictable primitives." Tom laughed at that. His old leather bag sat at his feet, still containing the simple mining manuals that had helped save the world. News crews from every country wanted to interview him, but Tom just shook his head. "I'm just an old miner," he told them. "I just remembered what my teachers taught me. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution." In the weeks that followed, Earth changed. Countries that had fought for centuries now worked together, sharing knowledge of old technologies that might protect them from future attacks. Mining engineers became more valuable than computer experts. In a secret military base, Tom stood before a group of young officers. Behind him, a blackboard showed chemical formulas and old mining diagrams. No computers, no fancy presentations, just chalk and knowledge. "The aliens made a simple mistake," he explained, drawing on the board. "They thought newer always meant better. They forgot that old doesn't mean useless." The officers took notes with pencils and paper. They were learning the old ways, the simple ways, just in case Earth needed them again. In orbit, satellites picked up alien radio chatter. The Galactic Empire was in chaos, their mightiest warship destroyed by what they called primitive chemical reactions. Their leaders couldn't understand how they had been defeated by a species that still used combustion engines. "Let them wonder," General Jack said during a global defense meeting. "Let them think we're crazy primitives who somehow got lucky. It's better if they don't understand." Tom agreed. He was already training teams of engineers in the old ways. They learned about thermite, about simple chemical reactions, about tools and techniques that had been around for centuries. "The aliens will come back eventually," he told his students. "But next time, they'll be afraid. Next time, they won't know what to expect. Is it a harmless match or a weapon? Is it a simple chemical reaction or a ship killer?" The Steel Lady became a museum. People came from around the world to see her, to touch her steam engines and look at her simple controls. Children asked their parents how such an old ship had defeated such a powerful enemy. Because sometimes, parents would explain, the simplest answer is the right answer. 1 year after the battle, Tom stood in his old mining office. The walls were covered with thank you letters from around the world. But he wasn't reading them. Instead, he was looking at an old photo of his first mining teacher. "You were right, old friend," he said to the picture. "You always said keep the old knowledge alive. You never know when you might need it." On his desk sat a piece of alien metal, salvaged from the subjugator's wreckage. Next to it was a small container of thermite and a match. Advanced technology and simple chemistry, side by side. Earth's scientists were already studying the alien wreckage, learning their technology. But they were also doing something else. They were studying Earth's oldest technologies, looking for more forgotten knowledge that might help protect humanity. As the sun set, Tom packed up his old leather bag. He had a new class to teach tomorrow, showing young engineers how to defeat energy shields with 19th century chemistry. "The aliens thought we were primitives," he often told his students, but they forgot something important. They forgot that old knowledge isn't weak knowledge. They forgot that simple doesn't mean harmless. And somewhere in deep space, alien ships passed warnings to each other. Avoid the third planet of the yellow star. Its people are primitive, and that's what makes them dangerous.